Ladies and gentlemen, a man who doesn't play guitar, but he gives great stadium. Please welcome Mr. Bill Graham.
I want to thank you for this award, and I hope to God you take care of each other. Thank you.
Thanks for staying up later. Bill Graham is with us tonight from Los Angeles. There's no counting how many rock concerts he's produced and promoted through the years with groups like the Stones and Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead, and with Dylan and Neil Young and Jimi Hendrix and Otis Redding, and the list goes on and on. Let's start, though, with something that's presently on people's minds, and that's the Doors movie. You're not too pleased with the way that came out, are you?
No, I'm sorry to say.
Is it untruthful to Jim Morrison's life, to the truth of the Doors, or it's only a partial truth? What's the problem with it?
That's hard to talk about because I've tried to keep that side private. I think the wrong decision was made. And my hope from the beginning had been to use the Doors as a catalyst and tell their story and tell Jim's story, but more than that, really give the public an idea to some degree of what that era was all about. Not getting that is the biggest creative mistake of my life.
You get a producer's credit on the film, true?
Right.
But you wish you could erase it entirely?
No, I'd rather just apologize to some people that I gave my word to, that certain things wouldn't be done the way they were done. I'm just sorry that I was weak at the time. The only depressed time I've ever experienced in my life was in that time period for some other reason, but it affected my my energy level and my thought capacities to some extent, and I wasn't as strong-minded and strong-willed as I usually am about any project of that scope, and it meant a great deal to me. I made a mistake, and I let it go the wrong way, and what we didn't get was the joy and the hope of those times, and today's youth, through that picture, will not get what I hoped they would get through that picture.
Why was the project entrusted to you from the beginning?
There was a lot of confusion in Hollywood with who had the rights and how to get the rights and who was connected to the rights. And it got down to the certain family members on both sides of the two individuals, Pam and Jim. And Jim had said, members of the Doors had said things about the way we did business with them in those days, so that the attorneys many years ago, 5, 6 years ago, called me, said, would I intercede in speaking to both sides? And
they trusted you.
And I did, correct.
And that was transmitted to their heirs.
Correct. And as a result of that, we were able to put the project into motion. By that time, there were other directors that I had approached that I thought were right for this project. Timing was off. And then someone of Oliver's great stature came along, and I weakened.
The problem here isn't that there isn't a lot of truth in Stone's depiction, but only that it's one slice of the truth and not the whole thing. Is that right?
There's too much excess of all the negative aspects of those lives. But where is the hope and the light? If there was anything that was there, prominent every day, 66, 67, 68, for the first time, to the best of my recollection, this massive civilization truly believed that they were involved with attempting positive change, to be involved with affecting that, and that they could, that there was sincere hope.
Seeking to expand upon his success in San Francisco, rock impresario Bill Graham decided to bring the Fillmore experience to the East Coast. But it was more than just a simple transplant. With grand New York style, he opened a theater that was arguably the greatest rock venue of all time. Great sound, great lights, great music. And anyone who ever attended a show there would never forget it.
I saw the Who there, and I saw the Doors there.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Some of the best shows we ever did
We're at the Fillmore East in New York City.
A venue is like a picture frame. Like the Fillmore East was a beautiful frame. It's a nice old theater. A good frame is really important to a painting. The same is true with an artist on stage. The Fillmore was a great frame.
Bill Graham opened the Fillmore East in 1968. Unlike the ballroom setting of the Fillmore in San Francisco, he chose an ornate old movie theater as his East Coast venue. While it was open, its marquee would read like a who's who of 60s-era rock music. Unfortunately, it's a temple that no longer stands. Like the ruins of a vanquished empire, only its upper facade remains. Today, people pass unknowingly through what was once the entrance to a grand temple of rock.
Where I'm standing now is 2nd Avenue and 6th Street. It's the most famous corner in the history of New York rock and roll. The audience would line up down the street here, down 6th Street, and they'd come into the Fillmore East, which was over here, and that's where the Fillmore East actually was. The famous marquee came out, and people would enter through there. So the reason the Fillmore was such a powerful performance space is because everybody working here was trained in the theater.
In New York, Bill Graham and his staff presented rock music with a quality and formality that was unheard of at the time. There were 2 shows nightly, complete with uniformed ushers, playbills, and intermissions. Even the use of a light show, a mainstay of his West Coast venue, was transformed to fit the theatrical proscenium setting.
In New York, it was a theater with reserved seats. Completely different discipline because people can't wander away. They're forced to look straight ahead. So we took the responsibility for their eyeballs from the moment they arrived until the moment they closed the house. We'd show cartoons, we'd have funny slides. And when the band was introduced, their name came up, and the first note of music, there was a visual, and the second note of music, there was a different visual, and then we would listen and make things happen.
It just made for an amazing presentation of rock and roll. And that's what Bill Graham wanted. He wanted to show rock and roll at its highest level. Not only the music, but the visual presentation and the efficiency of not having to wait for an hour between bands. It was just great rock and roll theater.
The shows at the Fillmore East usually featured 3 acts on every bill. Bill Graham would do his best to make every evening a unique entertainment experience.
Even though you didn't know these thousands of other people sitting next to you or sitting around you, you kind of felt spiritually like you knew them, and you felt like you were a group of kindred spirits.
More often than not, the bands would live up to the expectations of the Fillmore crowd. Its magical atmosphere would encourage musicians to reach new heights.
The thing about the Fillmore East was we could play all night. There was no curfews on the East Coast. In most other halls, there was always curfews.
Yeah, it was great at the Fillmore East because you could play until noon if you wanted to. You know, we damn near did a couple of times.
The Fillmore East would soon develop a mystique that would attract the attention of those outside the rock world.
The backstage was a nut house. I mean, I remember Frank Zappa, rest in peace, on the stairs with 2 young ladies. And what was going on, I really can't repeat, but
talking,
I mean, I was on
and
my
fondling
way to my trombone to warm up, and I just...
Amidst all the music and hijinks, Bill Graham was busy building a rock and roll empire, and his notorious temper kept people from getting in his way.
Mike said no, but Mike said he didn't mind people coming in. You don't mind?
No,
okay.
I don't want them in here.
Okay.
It's very simple.
But after the national exposure of events like Woodstock in 1969, more and more rock acts became interested in the business side of music. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young at the Fillmore East seemed to typify growing rock star demands.
Bill Graham would come and he would knock on the door and said, "They're not leaving, you gotta come back and do some more." And we go, "Look, we've just done 3 hours, come on, give us a break, you know." So I think it was Crosby said, "We want money." And Bill Graham starts to feed $100 bills under the door. And when he got to, I think, 8, Neil said, Okay, we'll do one more song.
The change in the rock and roll scene made it difficult for the 2,600-seat theater to compete with the arena-sized audiences that top acts were now willing to play to. With the writing on the wall, Bill Graham decided to preemptively pull the plug on his Fillmore operations in the summer of 1971.
When the music's over, when the music's over, yeah. When the music's over, turn up the lights, turn up the lights, turn up the lights. When the music's over, when the music's over, when the music's over, turn up the lights, turn up the lights, turn up the lights. Well, the music is your special friend. Dance on fire, it intends. Music is your only friend. Until the end, until the end, until the cancel my subscription to the resurrection. Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got some friends inside. face in the mirror won't stop. The girl in the window won't drop. A feast of friends, alive she cried, waiting for me outside. Before I sing into the big sleep, I want to hear, I want to hear the scream of the butterfly. Come back, baby, back into my arms. We're getting tired of hanging around. Waiting around with our heads to the ground. I hear a very gentle sound. Very near yet very far, very soft yet very clear. Come today, come today. What have they done to the earth? What have they done to our fair sister? Ravaged and plundered and ripped her and bit her, stuck her with knives in the side of the dawn, and tied her with fences and dragged her down. I hear a very gentle sound. With your ear down to the ground. We want the world and we want it. We want the world and we want it. Now. Now. So when the music's over, when the music's over, yeah. When the music's over, turn up the lights, turn up the lights, turn up the lights. Well, the music is your special friend. Dance on fires, Indian turns. Music is your only friend. Till the end, until the end, until